mercy and your grace. We thank you for loving us so much that you sent your Son to die on the cross so that if we so choose and we take the proper action, that we can live in heaven with you forever someday, Father. We thank you so much for that. Father, tonight I just want to pray specifically for the leaders of the countries in this world we live in, Father, that you bestow upon them a brotherly love, a brotherly, righteous love to understand what's truly important, Father, in life, and that they take the proper action to give us happiness and just a righteous opportunity to live on this earth, Father. Just be with them. And what I want to specifically pray tonight, Father, is that your will be done in their lives, on this earth, and in our lives, that we live a righteous life, understanding the true purpose of this life, and that we fulfill that, and that we do the very best we can to just live and glorify you, Father. Thank you, and thank you for this opportunity to serve with this council. I thank you for the leaders of this parish, Father, specifically the leaders of the law enforcement agency and the leaders of our school system, Father, and just be with them and be with the first responders, Father, and just help us all to understand that what's best is to follow you and to love each other and do the best we can to help each other in the hard times. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. Mr. Bubba Harris, can you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Roll call. Miss Sandy?
Mr. Ard.
Here.
Mr. Girlinghouse.
Here.
Mr. Wascom.
Here.
Mr. Harris. Mr. McMorris.
Here.
Mr. Delight.
Here.
Mr. King.
Here.
Mr. Talbert.
Here.
Mr. Mack.
Here.
All present.
All right. Item 5, cell phones. If you have a cell phone, please turn it off or mute it. Public input. Anyone wishing to address an agenda item, when we get to that item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. And we will allow everyone 3 minutes, and we ask that you don't repeat something that someone before you's already said. Presentations. I don't think we have any presentations today. Item 8, adoption of the minutes of the February 24th, 2022 regular meeting of the council. Motion by Mr. Girlinghouse, second by Mr. McMorris. All in favor? Aye. Parish president report. Nothing to report.
No report.
Planning commission recommendations.
That was quick. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First on our Planning Commission recommendation is Sweetwater subdivision. Okay, let me get Sweetwater subdivision is engineered by Quality Engineer. This is in Mr. Bubba Harris's district off Forest Club Road. It's a recommendation of the Livingston Parish Planning Commission to approve the preliminary plat for Sweetwater subdivision contingent on comments being addressed. And all comments are addressed as of today.
Okay. All right. Do we have, Mr. Bubba, you got something you'd like to say?
I have one thing I'd like to say. Okay. Yeah, this is preliminary is what we're approving, correct?
That's correct.
Well, I wouldn't want to approve this right now until we get everything back from the drainage, the state on the turning lanes, and whatever else it may take. We need to have those back and come back before either the planning commission or either this board right here. to make that decision next. It's something we've been wanting to do for a long time, is not approve it till it comes back with all the other stuff.
All right,
So do you, I guess, Jeff, Mr. Bubba's making a motion?
I'm gonna make that motion.
all right, so we're gonna have a motion. Before we get to that, is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak on this? Come on up.
My name is Derrick Murphy, Quality Engineering and Surveying, representing this project, 18320 Highway 42 in Port Vincent. This project was presented to the Planning Commission and approved at the Planning Commission stage because it does meet the ordinance, it does meet the codes, it does meet everything that is needed for approval at this stage for this parish. We understand and wholeheartedly agree and expect to do a full-fledged drainage impact study to meet the code. We understand that we're going to have to go, because this is a DOTD highway, we're going to have to go to DOTD. We're going to have to go and make sure that any traffic issues are mitigated through the DOTD type process. And we're going to have to present what they call a preliminary plat 2 as per your code with any changes. And if the changes are deemed per your code, they need to come back in front of this body at this particular time. We're going to be doing that as well. Anything that meets the letter of the law, the 4 pages in that book, the subdivision regulations and the code that is written upon, we're going to follow that to the T. In this particular case, if that process needs to change, and y'all are the legislative body, of course, to make those changes, and y'all have the ability to do that. But at this particular time, this project does meet the code in every aspect. Now, I will, if y'all indulge me, I'd like to talk a little bit about the quick design. This design was done in order to buffer a lot of the people along this project. We've taken a lot of time and a lot of care to put large vegetative type buffers. We've put ponds between adjacent property owners and this project in order to make sure that because we do know this area very intimately as far as drainage is concerned, and we want to make sure that if we could, and we are committed to do this, we're going to detain 100-year for this project. We're going to present that in the drainage impact study because we knew the complexity and we know the sensitivity of the drainage for this region. And that's going to be one thing that we're going to present as part of this project. And even if y'all want to approve it with that contingency, we're fine with that, to make sure that we detain the 100-year storm for this particular project, which is above and beyond what is required in today's code. So we're here to tell you tonight, based on the approval from the Planning Commission, as well as, I'm not going to speak for staff or Mr. Sam, but we do meet the code as far as I'm concerned as an engineer for this project. And I'm here to answer any questions that each or every one of you have on this project. Thank you.
My name is Erin Sandersford, 24411 Oma Harris Lane. Mr. Harris is my councilman. I spoke at the Planning Commission meeting the other night. Isn't it illegal to dump water on your neighbor in our parish? Is that illegal?
It is.
I live on wetlands. I have a list here. Let me go down. The water, the drainage ways. That development changes the natural drainage ways. There's wetlands. There's a certain amount of wetlands they are not going to develop. I don't have those numbers with me, but there are also wetlands that they are planning to look at developing. I live on 20 acres of wetlands. You know, it's parish, this whole part of the parish, we can't take any more developments like this right now until we get the infrastructure and the drainage under control. The sewage is an issue. They can't use city sewage. It's my understanding that they can't use city sewage because it's maxed out. The wastewater treatment plant is at max capacity. So they're going to have to go to MODADS, which I don't think you can do that either, correct me if I'm wrong, or the sewage plant, the little mini, I don't know what it's called, but the mini sewage plants that they put with the subdivisions. To give an example, the one at Walker Park. You're sitting at Walker Park, it just smells. That might be legal, but the MODADs are not, and the wastewater treatment plant is at max capacity. That's my understanding of it. Is this one of those developments that are tailored to the ordinance rather than the area and respect to the area around it? I fall into that land where this kind of thing, this water gets dumped on me. Pre-Nickens Lake development, parallel to now, where I live, the water's not acting right. We're holding water, and I have pictures. I texted them to one of the councilmen the other day. We're holding water on Harrison, Hill and Hood, and that water does travel that way. We're a big soup bowl there, and the engineers know all about it. There's 4 or 5 culverts that they've had to go and replace under our road, Hill and Hood, to try to accommodate some of this water and move it. It's not moving right anymore, y'all. So I guess they meet the code today, but as soon as an ordinance passes, they're not going to meet the code anymore. If it's illegal to dump water on your neighbor, they're dumping water on me. They're dumping water on my neighbors in my neighborhood. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Randy.
I'd like to say a few things. I know that at the planning commission meeting, there was even more people than this there. And so that there's a concern, and there's 2 sides, okay? And we as a council have to figure out those 2 sides with our limited ability of what we can do. I've done a little bit of research, and it says that if a development has met legal standards, it is presumed valid. In absence of extraordinary circumstances, we must approve it. That's what we've been told forever. Number 2, on the Louisiana Constitution says, Unified Land Development Code states land use is subject to the police powers of various governing bodies, and the courts will not interfere with the decisions of these bodies unless it is clear that the action is without any relation to the public health, safety, or general welfare. And that's what we're basically talking about, public health, safety, and general welfare. Number 3, opinion. Attorney General opinion 16-0011 says, according to the Attorney General, that the Parish Planning Committee has the authority to deny an application seeking approval of a subdivision when the plat meets all statutory and regulatory requirements. And last but not least, I think the way to go about doing this is I want to use the powers of this government entity to help these people in the room. And to do that, I think we can achieve this by asking for an AG opinion on this specific matter, because it seems to be a public welfare safety hazard issue here. Based on our sworn duty to take into account the public health, safety, or general welfare, that this subdivision would cause not only these people, but people further down the road. This could set a precedence where overdevelopment is, and I know in my area, I'm looking at the same thing, where you overdevelop in certain areas, it does cause a hazard to people that's normally living there. And I think we've been told 2 or 3 things. It's what I've just read, anyone could Google or could get, and you could go get more additional information in this, but we have the right to ask the Attorney General to guide us, and I'd like to pass a motion that we wait until the Attorney General guides us in this matter, telling us what our legal procedures are, we can and can't do.
Mr. Gillette, could you, the second to last point, could you read that again?
Okay, I'm gonna start and read it from the entirety.
Okay.
The first thing it says that we've been told is that if a development has met legal standards, it is presumed valid. In absence of any extraordinary circumstances, we must approve it. And that's what we've been doing in the past. The second point is the Louisiana Constitution says Unified Land Development Code states land use is subject to the police powers of various governing bodies, and the courts will not interfere with the decisions of these bodies unless it is clear that the action is taken is without any relation to the public health, safety, or general welfare, just if we arbitrarily do that and not have a real reason, okay? The third and final point that I wanted to make came, the Attorney General gave this opinion to Ascension Parish. And that number is, so that was in 2016, and that number is 0011. He said that the Parish Planning Committee has the authority to deny an application seeking approval of a subdivision when the plat does meet all the statutory and regulatory requirements that we have set forth. So there are issues. Everything is not black and white. There are issues that cause certain things to happen. And that exact development may work 10 miles down the road or 20 miles or whatever may work. In that particular area, it seems that the citizens have tried to get the attention of government to listen to their voice that they have a problem. And for us to tell them that, no, we have to do this, tells me where it should never come before us to start with. If we have to do it where you do it at in a planning committee meeting, okay? When it comes to before us, this is that last stop. If we do what we did in the past, I think we keep digging ourselves a bigger and bigger hole, because not only this development, but the next development, and the next development, and the next development. And we're just talking about public health and safety and welfare. We never mention anything about schools or drainages or traffic. One of the developments in my area is talking maybe 1,200-1,400 homes with a school that is overcrowded now with no additional land to buy. You know, how's those things gonna happen? So I have to figure that we have some sort of leeway based on what I read. And if the Attorney General would just make it plain to us, if we would ask that opinion before we approve this development.
I second that.
So I would like to ask Mr. Moody's
Yeah, I want
opinion on this.
I want to ask Chris a question, because the Attorney General opinion says the Planning Commission can deny it. The Planning Commission's already approved it.
True.
I mean, and so, I mean, he gave the Planning Commission the opportunity to deny it, and they approved it. So my question is, are we bound, since the AG's opinion says the Planning Commission can deny it, and they approved it, are we bound by their recommendation?
Well, I haven't seen or haven't studied that particular opinion. I'd have to read the whole opinion. I frankly can't believe that's the whole opinion. You can use your discretion in deciding these matters, but if it meets your ordinance, you're pretty much handcuffed, because what you can't do is treat one developer differently than you've treated 300 others that have come before you. Because if you do that to this guy, then you have violated his personal property rights, and that's protected by the U.S. Constitution. You can't take somebody's property rights away by just saying that this group gets to do it and this one can't. So that becomes almost per se arbitrary and capricious. You turned it down because angry citizens and politically connected people spoke against this one. Once before, this council was sued over something somewhat similar, and they went to federal court and they were turned down at preliminary plan approval. The council before you, none of you were on that council, against our advice, but they did that. We got sued in federal court, and we ended up having to pay the other side's attorney's fees. Now, it just so happened that was a black developer, and they had other constitutional issues connected to that. But I understand the anger about this. When they give you the police power, what they mean by that is that you can pass tougher and tougher ordinances. There's your power. So you can't, you have these, what you thought were pretty tough rules in place. I know you're working on making them tougher, But once somebody goes and buys property and engages services of engineers and starts doing some work, knowing tell us what the rules are, and so we know we can buy property there and develop, then you can't come up here and they meet all those rules. You can't just jerk that away from them. That's arbitrary. So can I think of some circumstance where you could say we're turning it down because there's some super health reason you're not going to protect the citizens from? But generic traffic, drainage, and school issues, that's every subdivision that comes before you. You got to have something better than that. You got to have something sexier than that. So unless you can enunciate something that's better than that, I'm thinking this wouldn't withstand a lawsuit. Now, could you delay it and send it back to the planning commission to take another look at this? Could you ask for Attorney General's opinion? Yeah, I guess you could. But ultimately, I think you're just delaying the inevitable, unless I'm missing something.
Chris, let me ask you another question, somewhat related, and you know, in the past, we've had these submittals come in on preliminary plats. And then in essence, whatever rules were in place at the time is how they had to build. However, if you go to the code and read section 125.2, it basically says that, you know, these regulations shall apply to any development that's not under construction as defined in section 125-1, definitions as of the date of the adoption of the ordinance amending this article, February 14. However, and it lists a group of sections, shall apply upon adoption of the ordinance from which the article is derived. So in essence, this section says that if we toughen the standard before construction starts, they've got to meet the new standard. Is that how you perceive the
Yeah, I'd like to look at what you're talking about changing. You can make things tougher, it applies across the board. But if it's done to just arbitrarily keep them developing a piece of property, there's
No, we're already talking about a tougher standard. So my question is, I mean, there's some concerns about drainage with respect to this particular development. There's you know, concerns about all kind of developments. And so we're looking at toughening the drainage standard and some design standards, limiting, you know, the length that a drainage impact study is good for. So my question is, this thing's been submitted. Does that mean any of these, I mean, it's going to be, and the sections that we're changing are listed as being, you know, when they're adopted, they then become the law. Does that mean that none of those stuff or standards will apply to this development in the future, or?
You mean the ones that you're about to put in
Right.
place? The rule on that generally is if it's across the board and it's for health and welfare purposes, you can install tougher requirements. So just like you could say, we want a tougher sewer requirement, that goes, everybody in the parish has got to meet that. So anytime you come in to get a new permit, you got to upgrade that. You typically have to give people a grace period to meet that. Or if you wanted to adopt a sign ordinance and saying we can't have big signs anymore, and you got to give them a grace period. So the further you get away from health and the safety issues, the more you got to give them grace or let them become grandfathered in. Most every other time you've grandfathered them in, because then that becomes arbitrary about who gets what. Because if you let one have it, you got to let them all have it, right? So, I mean, this council's doing it the right way. You've toughened up your subdivision restrictions greatly just in the past 4 to 6 years that you guys have been here, and
We tried to do even more.
right.
Yeah.
And I think you could go further.
I think, Shane, had something you want to say?
Yeah, I did have a couple questions. Turn my mic on. This question is really for the planning director, or maybe Morgan, somebody that reviews the development plans. So, it's just a general question. It was my understanding, you know, if the preliminary plat passes, that, you know, there's certain requirements within the ordinance, there's certain studies that need to be performed, and if that study determines that action needs to take place to meet the requirements of the ordinance, or to meet, I guess you could say, the results of the study, specifically maybe a traffic study or maybe a school, if there's an impact for the school or something. To me, I would like for you to explain how that works, and if the developer, if the study was performed, who performs the study? And if the study is performed and determined that, say, a street needed to be widened, or maybe a canal needed to be dug in a drainage study, that costs funds, in order for the drainage plan to operate, or maybe it's a large portion of new students that need to be, educated in our school district, that costs money, and so, if the study determined that, and it was communicated to the developer that he was going to have to meet the requirements of the study or else not be developed. Is that pretty much how it works? Can you come up and explain that? Because I guess action definitely needs to be taken place, to me, by the council in some way, shape, or form, and we're going to work on this in the future. But as we continue to grow and we continue to populate, if we don't begin to address these developments within these highly, I don't know how else to say it, but low-lying areas with extreme drainage problems, and we continue to flood our schools, and we continue to just develop without actually improving infrastructure, then to me that's not good growth. That's not responsible government, and so we need to. I'd like for you to answer those questions. The reason I'm asking, I want to be honest with you, is because I was under the impression that if the developer did not meet those requirements, that you would deny that development so that it would protect the people that currently exist in the surrounding area. And so if that's not the case, and that's not the current way that this group is operating, I think some changes need to be made. So can you explain that? Is that how it works?
So they meet those requirements. So I'm gonna go with the drainage impact study first. So if you do a drainage impact study, you're showing me the study of what you're going to do to meet y'all's ordinances. So right now, your ordinance is pre to post in a 25-year storm event. They do that.
Pull your mic down, Morgan, they have a hard time hearing.
So you can't negatively impact anybody on a 100-year. Well, most of y'all's developers in this parish, they just meet pre to post in a 100-year. So there's no negative impact downstream because they're not increasing the flow downstream in a 100-year storm event. So this is how they do it. And then their construction plans, they incorporate this into their construction plans, their ponds, their ditches, keeping it off of everybody else's property, putting it in their pond, and then discharging it out. That is what they do. Now, we've had studies where someone might say, hey, you already have a problem in this canal. It needs to be cleaned out. And we do report that. We'll report it to DPW or we'll report it to the drainage district so they can see there's already an existing issue. But they're not making it worse. As far as a traffic impact study, I'll go ahead and do this development y'all are talking about. So DOTD is going to require them to do a traffic impact study. And if they show that a turn lane is needed, they're going to make them put the turn lane in. They're going to make them analyze multiple intersections to show the impact of the subdivision. I've already actually I got an email just today from DOTD about a subdivision that's coming in that's going to be a lot of lots, and they want our input on if they think they've covered all the intersections, which they did. They made them do a lot of intersections. But they do kind of coordinate with the parish, ask for their opinion.
This costing me money, We have voted it in. You understand what I'm saying? So ultimately, every time we've tried to impose health, safety, and welfare, this council has ultimately voted in preliminary plats that don't require waivers. And then we've asked our review engineer to make sure that the studies are done and the design is such that the impact is minimal or, none. So, that's all we can do. We can continue to work to make tougher laws, but I think in this thing, I respectfully disagree with Mr. DeLatte. I think that we need to approve it, and then we need to work toward toughening the law so that in the future, and in.
Mr. Chairman,
Hold.
Quick question, Mr. Murphy. I was heard tonight that there's going to be individual sewer systems in this development?
No, you can't have individual sources.
Okay, so there's no MODADs, there's no community package system?
The community package, I'm not sure yet, because we are working through.
So
that with
y'all
the city of Denver
hadn't
Springs.
come up with a plan for sewer yet?
There is city sewer there, but there are capacity issues that we have to work through, either upgrades or a community plant. And if we have a community plant, I think we have to come back before you guys.
I mean, it seems to me like that's a simple thing that needs to be fixed before we move forward with the approval. I mean, why wouldn't that
Again,
plan
that's
be
part of-
submitted?
That's part of the studies going forward. This is a concept plan. This is a concept plan that we come before you guys with the ponds. We put if I may.
Well, go ahead, Dick.
So, just like we have a plan, we have ponds drawn in that plan. Until we actually do the drainage impact study and see what we have, we don't know if the ponds are sized appropriately a lot of times. We know from a theoretical, preliminary, and those kind of things, they are close. If we have to go and make massive changes due to the amount of pond that we have to come back, and the drainage impact study says those changes, then we have to come back before y'all again. This is a first step of many. This is the first step. We have so many eyes on these codes as we go forward.
I guess my question was, so you may look at it and say, oh, we need to put a community sewer package in here. Well, we have kind of all decided as a council that we're getting away from that. We're requiring people to go to municipal sewer systems. And if they can't, then maybe it's not the right location for it, is all I'm saying. I mean, that's been clear. We've set that standard years ago.
Well, and yes, if there are municipal sewer systems directly in the region, then yes, we are required by ordinance to tie to them. If they have capacity issues, we work with that to try to get those capacity issues addressed, or we're allowed to put community package plants. These community package plants can be put together by a utility
And I'm
provider.
familiar with them, and we talked about sewer package, community package. We've all agreed that we don't want that because they start stinking, nobody takes care of them.
I think the thing
Wait,
we
hold
got.
up, hold up.
Are you finished, John?
Yeah, I mean, that's just.
Randy?
This plat, the plat that's in front of you today is that plat that y'all are voting on, which does not have one.
So how do we know where the sewer's gonna go? We don't know.
Well, I guess
Wait, hold up.
Go ahead,
You spoke a lot over there, Mr. Talbot. You spoke a lot.
Hold up, Randy, go ahead.
There's an opportunity here, and I'm doing this, guys, as tasteful as we can. This is the only time you will be able to stop this development is here preliminary. Once you give them preliminary and they start spending their money, you can't stop it then. We've been told that. The only question I was asked is if we can legally stop it or not. I don't know. There's conflicting information. It's a simple, I had a second on the motion to get this information from the Attorney General to see if we within our legal rights to stop a development because of general welfare and safety and public health. Any one of those three counts in that thing. So let's get that information, let's get that Attorney General's opinion, and if we find and he says, yes, you can do that legally, as long as it's one of those three things. If they take us to court, then what they have to do is prove, they say, well, they said this was a general welfare problem, and we definitely have to state what the problem is gonna be, and if they take us to court, they have to prove or disprove that we was wrong or they was right, you know? We're not gonna just arbitrarily turn down every subdivision that comes through here, but when one causes problems, it's our job to stand up and represent those people. And the only way you can do that is to get an outside opinion. We divided on this issue right here in this table. We divided. So let's let the guy that's in charge, that makes the big bucks, say, yes, you can legally do this, or no, you can't legally do it. And that's all we ask it. Then we know how to proceed from that point on. That's a simple question. I'd like to take a vote on the motion I made.
All right, hold up. So Randy just called the question.
No.
Right, he said, let's take a vote. He just, is that right,
That's
Mr.
it.
Moody?
Unless there's opposition to the question, in which case you
Well-
take a vote on whether or not you intervene.
So,
I wanna
Okay.
make a point, but,
But he moved for a previous question, so that either needs to be
Let's
accepted or
vote,
voted on.
on the previous question, and then we can continue
Are
discussion.
you ready to end debate? If so, you
So-
you vote in favor of previous
So do
question.
you want, but can he vote to continue discussion since he had something to say?
Or he can just remove it.
Well, if there's enough votes, you continue with the discussion. So if the
Okay.
people vote
So-
down the previous question,
So I think everybody up here had their fair share of the talk.
Do you want to make a motion to continue discussion?
Yes.
All right, do I have a second? Second from Mr. Talbot. Ms. Sandy, call the vote on that.
Mr. Ard,
Yes.
Mr. Greenhouse,
Yes.
Mr. Wascom,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. McMorris.
Yes.
Mr. Gillette,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Mr. Mack.
All right, so now, Mr. McMorris.
So this
you have
gives
the
me and
floor.
Tracy a time to talk, right?
Yeah.
So, the whole problem with our parish here is all about change, right? I'm not for developments, big developments. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to anybody. I was born in the country, see these big developments coming, nobody wants to see it. But if we wanna stop it, we need to buy the properties. I can't buy it, but I believe that's the only way we're gonna do it, unless we, the council, put a moratorium on every builder coming into our parish. Stop it, let's get our ducks in a row. You know, I know we shaking our heads, but I'm telling you, Ascension did it. They put some good plans together, and they was able to move forward, right? With drainage, with road studies. We have to get together. Tracy called, I think, just about everybody on this council, and trying to get everybody, hey, let's come before the planning committee, our ordinance committee, and let's present it. We need to get off sorry, God. We need to get off our butts and do our part, right?
I agree.
And-
But, yeah, there's a,
Hey,
All right, hold. McMorris, you still got the floor. Hold on.
Never gets passed.
Hold on.
so I just want to make sure that we, the council, are doing our jobs also to protect the ones after this one gets approved, because it's going to get approved, all right? But we're going to have 100 more behind them. So let's get together and help the people of our parish. And we have to. We know about the flooding, everybody. Me personally, all right? So think about this, guys, hard.
Mr. Garlinghouse, you had something
I
else?
do. Look, sorry. In order to, and he's right, I have called pretty much all y'all about the moratorium. You know, a few things on that. One, we gotta have 5 votes to get that to happen, okay? 2, it's a little more complicated than just saying, hey, let's do a moratorium. But, you know, it is absolutely true. We are being, especially in the western part of the parish, we are being overrun. Now, Mr. Talbot has brought some other things forward that will definitely help in that regard. On the ordinance committee, certain ordinance changes that we're gonna do that would help tremendously. But we know if and when we do push for a moratorium, you know, we have to be on one accord of that, or at least, I think, I believe in my heart more than what we are. So, now, I've said it for probably 5-6 years now. It's too much. You know, we are being run, and I don't care what they say. If the drainage impact study says it's like a zero net, we all know that's not true. If that were the case, then it wouldn't be getting worse year after year after year. It just gets worse. And the problem is, it doesn't come back to us. Once we vote on this, it doesn't come back to us. So I don't know. They'll tell us what happens beyond that with the traffic impact study and the drainage impact study, but we have nothing, there's no say to us. It never comes back to us for anything. And part of me leads me to believe, I don't know, something happens along the way, but it's not zero impact. And it's not acceptable impact. Not to mention with the schools. You know, the schools are being, at least in the western part of the parish, I don't know, I'll say this, at least in like the Walker area, it's hammered, it's getting hammered. They build a big, new, beautiful school, and it's almost at capacity already. So at minimum, I think the school board should have a say in this procedure too. You know, whether it's just we take it under advisement or we give them a say. I don't know if I would want to go that route, but maybe so. The school board needs to sit and approve something, because, you know, it might not matter so much in the eastern part of the parish. it might not matter out there so much, but it matters to us because the reason a lot of people come here or move to this parish is because of the schools, and then they're going to wind up getting a school that's not worth having if we just keep putting kids in, and it's going to be in a community that's not worth living in either, because it's going to be bumper to bumper cars and pavement and roads that are just going to be clogged up, and these are the problems that we're facing. So I admit, we need to come together, and it's not just the members of the ordinance committee; it's all of us. The ordinance committee shouldn't be the only ones bringing ordinance forward. There's plenty of room out there for other 5 guys to sit down and bring stuff to us. And we all work toward fixing these things because these problems aren't going to go away. They're not going to fix themselves. They're not going to go away. Now, my question, to go back to that. So you said you want to defer it and the reason I asked this.
I think that's a second motion. I know Mr. Talbot doesn't believe that. I want a motion getting the Attorney General's opinion that allows to tell me if I have authorization to vote no or yes. Now it seems like my authorization is only to vote yes, to rubber stamp when it comes up here. So if that's true, why are we spending all this time and just rubber stamp it when you're at the planning commission? If we can't vote no, why spend all this time doing this? So I want this motion, and hopefully if that would pass, I would be greatly glad to table this to the next meeting or to whatever it took. But my first original motion that I want to make is to get an Attorney General opinion that would tell us if we have authorization to vote yes or no, or once it's there, we're going to automatically have to vote yes or we get sued. Is that? I'm reading there are reasons we can vote no. I'm reading there's reasons we can vote no.
Okay. All right.
I think mine's going to be with Mr. Talbot, because I want to clarify something Mr. Talbot said. So what you had said, Mr. Talbot, was that even if it votes we vote yes tonight, we can change the ordinance, and before they start building, they will have to those ordinances would have to apply.
If you go to section 125 of the ordinance of the deal, and you read 125-2, section C says administration of this chapter shall be by the parish council planning commission under the direction of the parish president. These regulations shall apply to any development that is not under construction as defined in section 21-1. And basically 21-1 says that clearing and grubbing isn't under construction. You got to have a set of construction plans to build a subdivision. As of the date of the adoption of the ordinance amending this article, February 14, 2002. However, section 125-9, 125-13, 125-14, 125-15, 125-19, we have in the proposed ordinance to add 2 more sections to it, and then 125-27 and 125-28 shall apply upon the adoption of the ordinance from which this article is derived. So basically, if you don't have construction plans and have not started construction, anything that's changed in those listed sections have to apply to the new development, according to what our ordinance says. Now, whether it's ever been challenged in court or not, I can't tell you, but basically what it says is that when you make a submittal, there's a group of ordinances that you work under. However, if you don't have construction plans, which you got to have before you can start construction according to our ordinance, and clearing and grubbing is not construction, then any of these other sections, you have to meet the new standard. Isn't that what the ordinance says, Chris?
Yes. That's
So-
it, and I think it'll probably stand up.
So ultimately, what I'm telling you is that look, if we approve it and don't drag our feet on the changes to the subdivision ordinance, they will have to meet the new standard.
So my question, Mr. Hart, sorry, are you planning on introducing those.
The ordinance committee recommended to table it so that we could study it some more.
But I didn't ask you that. Are you planning on introducing it?
I would like to introduce it and then read it, introduce it, and then make, we know we need to remove the Fonzie part of it, and we know that there's a methodology we want to change. We talked about a 50% reduction on a 100-year. I think what we want to do is store for a 100-year, and then have a 10% reduction on a 10-year pre-construction deal. And I think there's actually a developer has asked his engineer to take some approved developments or some design developments and run, a preliminary on it to see what the impact would be and make sure that we're accomplishing what we want to accomplish. So look, we can move forward. I mean, I'm just telling you that ultimately the power within this council rests in changing the law and making it tougher.
So
look, we talked about.
We have it on the agenda.
Okay, so
we've
talked about impact fees. Remember, we sat and talked about impact fees, and then what we told? You've got to have a study to justify. Well, guess what? We don't generate appropriations. We just approve them. So we can't go fund a study to back up whether we can justify impact fees. So ultimately, all we can do is pass laws that make it, the requirements more stringent, that protect your neighbor. I asked the engineer up here tonight, is a neighbor better protected under the ordinance that we have or the proposed ordinance? And he said the neighbor is better protected under a proposed ordinance. So we know that if we will pass the ordinance, make the changes, introduce them, approve them in 2 weeks, that this development will fall under the new regulations.
Okay.
And ultimately, we're protecting the neighbor. We are trying to do what we have in front of us. Look, I mean, that's how this thing is set up to work. And so, I know they've been talking about a moratorium. The issue is you have to define what you're trying to resolve, and you've got to put a timeline on it. Well, guess what? We don't have the ability to generate an appropriation to do the study to determine how we solve these issues. So it's hard for us to set forth a moratorium because we don't have the ability to do the study that would give us the results to make the changes. I mean, you understand? You got to have a defined ending to a moratorium, and you've got to be trying to accomplish something. So when I got the phone call from you about the moratorium, that's when I said, look, if we're gonna do something, this is how we got to do it.
Okay.
All right, Mr. King.
Okay, so I hadn't said much on this because everything we saying makes sense. But if y'all remember, ever since the 2016 flood, Gary brought forth a lot of changes. Bubba's mentioned a whole lot of changes that we need to do to make this to where development continues, but it doesn't impose any water or hardship on the people that are already living here. Tracy's brought them. Shane's brought them. What have we done? Sat on our hands because we couldn't get 5 votes, or we thought we couldn't. So from this day forward, every single ordinance that pertains to improving Livingston Parish comes to a vote. So everybody in this meeting has to vote yes or no on these improvements.
I agree.
There won't be any more, well, I don't think we can get any votes to pass it. Well, if they don't want to pass drainage improvements, they shouldn't be up here. Okay? Y'all can take care of that at the next election. Whoever is not going to be here, that's fine. But the ones of us that want to be here to help our people, we need to improve all this. Gary's drawn up a lot of stuff, and he's going to work on it and get it just right. I think you should introduce it tonight.
I agree.
Let's work on those changes. Now, it may not help this development, but we got to start this. We can't just keep making. Absolutely. It should. By reading what we read, it should.
All right, hold up.
Okay, that's all I got.
All right, state your name and address, please.
My name's Clint Harris. I live on 8255 Harris Road. And I want to say what he said about you can tell one developer no. I mean, you can't tell one and not the other. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Because if you got a development with 200 houses going in the middle of a briar patch in Holden, if you got one going in Holden in the middle of a briar patch and warehouse a property out there that 2 cars pass per day, That's completely different than what we're talking about right here. That's 100% different. So you should be able to tell one developer yes and one developer no. Also, I got pictures on my phone that all the drainage is going into Allen Bay. Allen Bay runs about a half a mile across my property. About 7 times this past year, I could not get in and out of my driveway. My whole front pasture floods, washes all the gravel off my road. Normally it happens about once a year. I can live with that. Since they developed Plantation Lakes, it's happened 6 or 7, 8 times. I got pictures on my phone. I can show you. It looks like the Colorado River coming across my driveway. So it is negatively impacting me downstream. Whether they say it does or not, it is. Another problem is, are they gonna have fire and police protection? The schools, the traffic, the drainage, the whole 9 yards. It's not just one issue. Garbage. Another issue that's my biggest problem is it's gonna negatively impact me because it's quarter-acre lots. You're gonna bring cheap houses, and it's gonna bring a lower class of people. And you know what's gonna happen. You can call a spade all you want, but that's what's gonna happen, and it's gonna bring my property value down because it's gonna turn into a dump, and you know it is. That's the biggest issue. If it's a gated community like Harrell's Ferry or whatever, I'm okay with that. I don't like it, but I can live with it. But you're gonna have another South Park or South Point or another Eastover or another dump as a subdivision. And it's gonna bring my property value down and all these other people's property values down. Also, on Plantation Estates, there's a buffer. There is. On my side, why do I don't have a buffer? Why my neighbor don't have a buffer? They're coming right up to my back fence. Be looking right in their backyard. They're gonna be coming across my fence, fishing in my pond, and it's gonna negatively impact me. But it is gonna bring my property value down because it's gonna go south. It's gonna go downhill.
Thank you.
It brings in a different class of people, and we don't need that.
Bubba?
One thing real quick. I'm gonna say where I started out at the beginning of the meeting about sending things back. Well, maybe we need to do a little more than that. We go on recommendations of the Planning Commission. I'm not saying they do a bad job by a long shot, but maybe they should put more input into a study before it comes to us. Because when it gets to us and we have all these people show up here and they say it's approved through the Planning Commission and it gets over here and we try to do something about it, well, from what I've heard tonight, there's nothing we can do. So I just don't agree with that.
All right, hold on. Is there any more comment from the public? Oh, let's get the public comment over with and then.
Mike Juno, 23945 Highway 1042, Iowa 4-H Club Road. I'm a retired Army officer, moved here 25 years ago, and was a developer for 25 years on large developments all around the southeast. And I'm kind of surprised what I'm hearing tonight, to be perfectly honest. A little disappointed somewhat. And I only came to the meeting tonight, and I went to the planning council meeting, because I haven't ever been involved in local politics, ever. I don't know anybody on the board. I know John because he was in my Kiwanis Club. I don't know none of it. So I don't have I have no stake in any game anywhere around here. But the thing that concerns me the most is this parish is growing. It's growing very fast. I was a developer, so I'm pro-development. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly in developments around the southeast. In fact, we did some in Central America as well. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, okay? If we don't get our act together in this parish, we're gonna screw up a great parish. I moved here because Livingston Parish is a great parish, but I'm pro-development. So you, the council members here, it's your responsibility. You're our representatives to make sure we get it right. Okay? You need to establish that balance between the developers can make money. We need to let them make money. Otherwise, they ain't coming. Okay? Let them make money. They got to know what's expected of them when they get here. Okay? And it sounds to me like they don't. Heck, the council right now doesn't even know what, if they can approve or disapprove what the planning board commission says. Something about that's just wrong. Okay? You guys need to get your act together, please. It's growing very fast here. And let's get it right. We got a great parish. Let's not screw it up, but let's let development come. I'm all for them. But let's just do it right. You know, if you got to set up a council or something to get it sounds, a lot of the bickering is just policies and procedures. What can I do? What can I not do? Is this right? Is this wrong? You know, do we have to do it through ordinances? Can we do it through ordinances? Well, let's get it right. We don't even know those simple questions. Let's get the policies and procedures right at the parish level so that developers know what they need to do to come here, which I would like to see them come. I mean, I know on Forest Club Road, I've heard some huge numbers coming down Forest Club Road. I was at a meeting the other day with the school board president, and they do know the numbers of development, because he was talking about that, about what he had to look forward to. And he mentioned a development of 1,800 homes coming down Forest Club Road.
5,000 lots.
Yeah, I don't know which one, but he mentioned that, and then I didn't even know about the Sweetwater one. I heard about that at the planning council meeting. That's over 2,000 homes. Now, anybody in the planning world know, you know, I don't know what figure y'all use, but it's probably about at least 3 people per home. That's 6,000 people, 8,000 people. That's the town, the city of Walker, coming down Forest Club Road. And they're coming. So y'all get it right. I just ask y'all, take the time and the effort, establish committees, whatever you need, but let's try to get it right.
Thank you, Mr. Gino.
Thank you.
My name is Holly Clark. I live at 24613 LA Highway 1032. My biggest, you know, after I did go to the planning committee, and basically we were told there that there's nothing they could do. There's nothing we could do. There's no reason for us to really be there to voice our concerns because they followed all the rules, so they get approved. So we come here, and y'all are like, oh, well, what's our point of coming here if y'all can't say no? What's the point of having a council if y'all can't say no? And not only that, I called the school board myself because I have kids in this parish, and I care about my kids and their education. And yes, they do know that these subdivisions are coming, but as a public entity, they cannot say no. They have no right as a public school to say, no, we can't allow them to build this school. So they just have to accommodate. So what does that mean for the kids that are currently in our parish? That they're gonna be overcrowded, overrun. We don't have teachers. How long have we been looking for bus drivers? Over a year. We're living on short bus drivers now. What are you gonna do with all these schools, with all these kids? They said just for this subdivision was like 80 elementary kids. What are you gonna do? We don't have bus drivers now. We don't have teachers. That is a huge concern, and y'all should be concerned about that because I'm sure y'all have kids or grandkids that are gonna go to these schools. What do you want for your kids? What do you want for your kids' future in this parish? Is what I think y'all should ask y'allself. And y'all think y'all should have the ability to say no. You shouldn't have to worry about being sued because you said no. What's the point of having a council?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. All right. Derrick?
Thank you. Y'all have a hard job, doesn't really pay a whole lot. But your job as council is to make laws. And, you know, in 2016 hit, affected all of us. And at that time, the drainage for this parish was a 10-year equal 10-year. Minimum you can do, which is equivalent.
Hey, Derrick, speak up a little bit.
Sorry. So in 2016, it was a 10-year storm equal a 10-year storm, pre or post, which was the same throughout this entire region. The 2016 floods proved that that was grossly inadequate. Now, it was a 1,000-year storm, 2,000-year storm, whatever you want to call it. Since then, I've worked with a lot of you on trying to make and toughen those laws and those rules, working with different entities and so forth. We had 25-year. We're talking tonight about going to 100-year or doing something else. And I think I applaud that. I think that to say that, you know, we're not doing something different is wrong, that we are. The things are being moved. We are moving the goalposts. I think it, like a lot of people in this audience and many of you would like it to be faster. But at the same time, we are a land of laws, and that's what we have. And when people start looking at their property and the property rights that they have, when you start looking at, I've crossed every I, I've crossed every T and dotted every I, it becomes a use by right. It becomes that I have followed the laws and the rules of this parish, and I should be able to do with my property as those laws allow. And I'm all for changing, and I'm all for working. And when we talk about zero net, I agree. But when you start looking at the ordinances, 10 equal 10, at 10 equal 10, we are zero net. But as soon as that, or 25 equal 25, as soon as those storms and that kind of stuff goes beyond that, then yeah, those design requirements are exceeded. That's why you're upping the design requirements as we go, because the zero net becomes more and more and more stringent. And those storms and those frequencies of storms become more and more prominent. We are going to have impact. The reason that you see detention ponds and what we're here talking about is because we mitigate those impacts. The reason you have turn lanes and you do different things is because these cars do provide impact on the roads. They also pay taxes. But the improvements of those intersections, the improvements of the turn lane and so forth is what mitigates those impacts. The same as a pond and the same as anything that we do. The school board, I'm not going to speak for the school board. They know what's coming because as per the laws that you put in place, they have to receive these plats before we come before y'all. So does most of the other entities, if not all of them, fire, water districts, all those kind of entities y'all already have in place, drainage districts, y'all already have in place those laws to make sure that every entity in this parish is notified when these plats come. Those laws are in place. So we say this a lot. We'll abide by the law. We just want to know what it is. And so we're here tonight asking for approval of a project that meets the laws that you guys and those before you have put in place. And we're asking for approval to move to the next step, to have those studies, to put that in place. And other parishes and other districts, those laws are different. Every parish, municipality, city of Denham, city of Walker, so forth, every place that we come in and develop is different. But we know what those rules are because they set before we come before you. And the expectation there is if we meet those laws and rules is that we can move forward with what we want to do. So we're here tonight to ask you for that approval, and we hope you grant it. Thank you.
All right. Yep. So you want to, let's let her speak. She hadn't spoke. Come on. And we're going to wrap it up after Erin.
Jane Chambers, 7362 Enterprise Drive in Plantation Estates. I'd like to address 3 issues that's already been addressed, but instead of it being the politically connected residents of Plantation Estates and Harris Road, I think it might be, many of us may feel quite the opposite, that it's us small resident voices that are going to be squashed and bulldozed over by politically connected developers. It's hard for me to understand. I can stand in my backyard and have walked onto this 80 acres that was previously privately owned, and have seen much more than 6 acres of palmetto, which obviously is an indication of lowlands. It's impossible for me to understand how us on Enterprise Drive that already are getting floodwaters from simple rains, how we're not going to be negatively impacted when you take low-level land, build it up to minimum elevation, and we're not going to be negatively impacted. Traffic. Yes, you may have to put a turn lane on 4-H Club Road, but what about entrance and exits off the interstate? There's already a 20-minute wait. Within easy eyesight, within a half a mile of the interstate, a 20-minute wait just to get to the interstate, on or off. How are we not going to be impacted in that manner? I just don't understand how 10 to 12,000 more vehicles is not going to negatively impact that wait. Y'all can hide behind, well, we have to follow the letter of the law because, no, or if the laws, ordinance, whatever it may be, are outdated and are going to negatively impact the residents of this parish, then it's y'all's jobs to protect us. It's y'all's jobs to change those rules that will affect any future developments. And as a small resident, I ask y'all to do y'all's job.
Thank you. All right. We're going to wrap it up with Erin.
I just wanted to make the point that the surrounding parishes have put certain measures in place, and I'm responding to what one of the engineers was saying just a moment ago. The reason you are here is because you see the gravy train, and we can't take that anymore. You're dumping water on me, you're dumping sewage on me and my family and my animals and my neighbors, and you can say you've done drainage impact studies and you've done this and that, but I see it, I have pictures of it, and there's just something wrong with that. There's got to be something somewhere legally to protect me and my neighbors from that. Thank you.
All right. All right.
You got to do Randy first.
Yeah. First, I want to make a couple of comments. I just really want to let everybody know that as a chairman, I can't make a motion. I can't make a second. I'm here to run this meeting. It's their job to make the motion in the second. But I have no problem with rolling the dice and taking a stand. We got to do it somewheres. We got to start protecting the people that live here now and quit worrying about the people that are coming in the future. Yeah. We have said that before on this floor. I'm good with either one of y'all's motions. We could do it with the way, or somebody make a motion with what Gary was saying, where we go with put the stiffer laws in, and when construction phase starts, they need to follow the stiffer laws. Or I even go with Randy's motion, but we've got to do something.
Mr. Chairman.
We got to make that start somewhere.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with you also, and the start is, we got to pass both those motions. Let's get the Attorney General's opinion to give us some teeth, some back, and so we get more braver, and let's also pass the motion that Gary had. And,
all right.
and
so would you like to change your motion to include both?
Yeah,
I don't know what Gary's was.
Gary didn't really make a motion.
Didn't.
He just said
Okay.
that we could go by that. So
We already have that on the agenda already, so.
Yeah.
really
yeah,
don't
so
need
we're
a
going to
motion.
do that tonight
Yeah.
anyway.
Okay.
So if you want to add that to your motion, that so
If-
that would be
if
when the
that's a
construction
requirement.
phase starts. They got to abide by whatever's
The new standard.
whatever we pass.
Which it already says.
Yeah.
So you could in theory approve planning commission's recommendation as long as whatever laws were in place at the time of construction, they followed.
Right.
Okay, I can't agree with that. I gotta vote no. I'm voting no against it, okay? I'm voting no against approval of this plan. So for me to do that, first I
So
want.
you're gonna leave your motion the
Yes,
same?
yes.
So yours is to get the Attorney General's
Opinion.
opinion to see if we can.
Can legally-
approve- If we have to approve it just because it meets.
Just because it came to us. Just 'cause
Okay. Wait, hold up. Let me clarify. So all he's doing is asking for Attorney General's opinion before we vote on this to ask if we can deny a project that meets the ordinance.
Just because it meets the ordinance, do we have to
All
vote
right.
yes
And
or can we
Tracy,
deny?
you still seconding that? So you're pulling your second on that?
And we need a time on that. I mean, are you deferring it to the next meeting? You deferring it what?
Well, he said to the next meeting.
Did you?
He did, originally he said to the next meeting.
Wait a second.
Yeah, he said the next,
Wait.
hold up, he said to the next meeting.
I would make that
Because
motion.
Chris said we possibly wouldn't get an opinion back.
I would make that
by
motion to do that, but I don't want one motion to cause the other motion to lose. I would like that to be two separate motions.
All right, so
Okay, so-
define that.
Okay?
Yeah.
I think it's imperative we get Attorney General's opinion on what we can and can't do. That's a no-brainer. The
Okay, so
second one is, I'm willing to vote to defer this until the next meeting, okay? But if you put both of those motions together, one may agree with one part of it and not with the other
Okay,
part.
well, I want a point of order. The item on the agenda is to approve or disapprove the preliminary plat. It's nothing about asking for an Attorney General's opinion. He can either make a motion to defer and ask for Attorney General's opinion, or he can make a motion to approve and ask for Attorney General's opinion. He cannot make a motion to ask for an Attorney General's opinion if he doesn't defer or approve or deny.
I
Chris,
dis-
am I-
I disagree with
Chris,
that.
Chris, do you
Just
agree
a
with?
motion to refer, to get an Attorney General's opinion doesn't resolve the agenda item. You'll still have to have a vote on that up or down.
Correct.
Or the table.
Correct.
Shane?
Okay, so my thought is, I kind of semi-agree with both of you, that Randy's motion should be to defer the approval of the preliminary plat of Sweetwater subdivision until we receive an Attorney General's opinion on whether or not we can approve or deny the preliminary plat. And if he changes his motion to that, then I'll second his motion.
That's good.
So you good with that?
Yeah.
So that'll be Randy's motion. Sandy, you got that? And Shane, you're gonna be the second on this. All right. So, there,
Repeat the
I
motion.
got one comment, is that can take 6 months, it can take a year, it can take 3 months, right, Chris? I mean, we don't have, that's the problem.
They're always at least 6 weeks unless there's like some statewide burning
Can we put
issue, but
a time,
You control when the Attorney General responds? Probably not.
all right.
no, you can't control
Wait till
that.
it responds. Do it right.
So that's, unless we got
Do it right.
another motion, we fixing to vote.
well, Bubba had a.
Well,
on
wait,
that.
Bubba, you did have a, but he didn't get a second, so,
Oh, you didn't
but
have
I can
a-
repeat your motion. Let's repeat your motion. Well, your original motion when we first started.
Don't
You
have
want,
me to repeat.
yeah. You basically wanted to defer it,
Yeah.
you know, because you wanted to try to get it to where they have to bring all their findings to us before we approve it.
I think you wanted to approve the preliminary plat and wait till we get the final, come back to us with the final of the.
He doesn't want to-
traffic and everything.
want to approve the preliminary plat.
He doesn't want to approve the preliminary plat until we get all the findings brought
And
back
nobody,
to us.
that's just, that's
All
not.
right, so do I have a second on, hey, listen, do I have a second on Bubba's motion?
What's his motion?
To deny the preliminary plat, defer it, and ask that we get all the findings sent to us before we approve it.
I second that. And that would include the Attorney General's opinion.
No, that would,
He can make that in if he wants to.
Put Randy's out. Yep, you, if you want to add in there the Attorney General's,
We got one.
all right, so he's going to add the Attorney General's opinion to that.
Okay,
So you still good?
yeah.
All right, so we got a motion and a second. That was the first one on the floor. So,
To deny or defer
to
the
defer the
The approval
preliminary plat
until we
you
get
all the
more
findings
findings.
back.
Okay, so that's the substitute motion of Randy's?
That's the
motion?
original
That's
motion.
the original motion.
That
Bubba,
was the original
So
motion
that's
to
the
make.
original motion. Do we have a substitute?
So do you want yours to be a substitute motion?
Basically the same thing.
same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Can I
So,
make a point of order? I think the proper way is to make an amendment to the motion.
Yeah, that's how you're supposed to do it.
No, that's not right.
You vote on the motion. I think that's how it's supposed to be.
I think,
I'm talking about the original motion. Randy's made a subsequent motion you should have not have entertained until you dealt with
Right.
Buzz.
So,
But now they've consolidated.
they've actually consolidated and made them into one motion, so,
Accepted it as a friendly second, so you can vote on that.
yeah, all
I'd
right.
like to make a substitute motion,
All right, Scooter?
that we approve the preliminary plat, because that's what me and Bubba had talked about, based upon the findings coming, have a positive outcome on the traffic studies and the drainage impact studies, because they can't even do those unless we approve a preliminary plat. So we won't know whether there is actually a problem. You know, we're just assuming there's a problem. You know?
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Yeah, that's what I second there.
Jeff, we got a motion?
Hold. All right, Scooter, you finish?
Yeah.
All right, so that's your motion. That's the end of it.
Yep.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Tao. All right, so, because that's a second, we have to vote on the substitute motion first.
Call for the vote.
Because
All
I
right,
want to see what
so-
it says.
Yeah, so, Ms. Sandy, call for the vote.
Can you state what the motion is again? It's to approve
To approve the preliminary plat
based on
the findings of the traffic and drainage studies.
And they have to bring it back to us for final.
They have to bring it back to us for
And if
final.
we don't like them, we can kill it.
Yeah, so we can kill it.
Well, that's basically the same thing I had.
No.
Well, but you
Scooter's
defer
just
it.
trying to play Gary.
You're deferring it, they're not. So you still gotta wait for the findings with either one of them, but we're, over here, we're approving the preliminary, you're deferring it all together. Yeah.
No, you won't. Come on.
All right, so you got it now, Miss Sandy? All right, hold up, guys, hold up. All right, call for the vote.
Mr. Ard,
No.
Mr. Grillinghouse,
Yes.
Mr. Wascom,
No.
Mr. Harris,
No.
Mr. McMorris.
No.
Mr. Gillette,
No.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
No.
All right, now, original motion, which is Bubba's,
To defer
to defer it
and not approve it.
until we get the findings back, just like the other
And then
way,
make a decision.
And ask for the Attorney General's opinion on whether we can deny
For authorization to vote against.
if something meets all ordinances, meets our ordinance. All right, call for the vote.
Mr. Ard,
Yes.
Mr. Grillinghouse,
Yes.
Mr. Wascom,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. McMorris.
Yes.
Mr. Gillette,
Yes.
Mr. King,
No.
Mr. Talbot,
No.
Mr. Meyer.
Yes.
All right, defer.
We don't get a pass, Sue.
All right,
Can I just say one thing?
real quick, Bubba, we need to move on. We spent a lot of time here.
And this is all part of what we're discussing tonight. It just so happens, I've been on the Holy Spirit and also the council since 1980. I have tried to get this passed ever since then. And it's been to a point where it kept getting voted down. So I'm glad to see that we are making some headway now in this parish. We're gonna get some of this stuff straightened.
All right, Mr. Sam, you back up. Item 10B. You still awake over there?
And he thought he was lucky that he was
You
first.
still awake?
Well, you did make it interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, next on your agenda is a commercial development, Ricardo's Food and Spirits. This is in Mr. Randy Delack's district. It's on Homeport Drive. I might mention that this is the old Kevin's Restaurant that the new owner is wanting to put some outside seating into. So it is a recommendation of the Livingston Parish Planning Commission to approve the final site plan for the DeCarlo's Food and Spirit development.
I made that motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we got a motion, Mr. Delat, second from Mr. Garlinghouse. Is there any comments from the public on this? Any more comment from the council? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Okay, next on the agenda is another commercial development, Live Oak High School STEM facility. This is in Mr. Gary Talbot's district, off of Highway 16 at the high school. It is a recommendation of the Livingston Parish Planning Commission to approve the preliminary site plan for Live Oak High School STEM facility contingent on our engineer's review. And as present, it has been reviewed. No comments, everything. Right, Morgan? So, it's a recommendation for approval.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All right, got a motion from Mr. Talbot, second from Mr. Mack. Is there any comment from the public on this? Any more comment from the council? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
well,
the
in
same.
case,
Denham has one.
Denham got one, you know we had to get one.
Yeah.
We would just like a new school down on the south side.
Yeah.
Well, they keep voting no.
All right, let's move on.
I had about enough of
10D.
that tonight.
Next
10D.
on the agenda is another commercial development, Gator Park Vehicle and RV Site, Phase 2. This is in Mr. Jeff Ard's district, off of Black Mud. It is a recommendation of the Livingston Parish Planning Commission to approve the preliminary site plan for Gator Park Vehicles and RV Phase 2.
All right,
I made
and
that motion for Mr. Ard.
yeah, I went out and looked at it, so I'm good with it. Motion from Mr. Garlinghouse, second from Mr. Harris. Gator Park.
Oh,
It's right on the, kind of between the interstate and Gator Park.
I thought they just called it Gator Park somewhere.
No,
Okay,
it's actually for when they hosting tournaments and stuff for RVs.
So these, Chair,
Go ahead.
so these, this gonna be additional lots they're building?
They've already done, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, the ones on the outer portion of it has been done, and the ones
that
closest to
came
the
to the
ball
council
fields are the one they're.
Months back,
Like 6 months.
and this is a Phase 2 that they're gonna add RV spots.
Okay, I thought the campground was on the other side of the interstate. Okay, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that's an additional campsite.
Yeah, it's additional.
It's gonna be another.
Yeah. All right, so we had a motion from Mr. Garlinghouse, second from Mr. Harris. Any comment from the public on this? All right, no more comments from the council. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, next on your agenda is a subdivision without improvements. This is in Mr. Gerald McMarsh's district, Eagle Gate Acres, off of Brown Road, or actually on Brown Road. It is a recommendation of the Livingston Parish Planning Commission to approve the preliminary plat for Eagle Gates acreage with the sewer waiver if the lots are at least 1 acre in size.
So Billy, can you come up here and tell us, cause I thought we already voted on these 1 acre lots on this one.
Yeah, I get confused.
All right, so just to clarify, we were here last meeting on a project, this similar name, it was Eagle Park Estates, and that was off of Joe May, and this is separate. So what you're looking at here is Eagle Gate Acres, and it is a revised preliminary plat. Let me see.
So it's
Is this the one that you let the horses out the bar, and now you're trying to gather them back up and redo? You originally, this was a part of the original development that was all one deal. And now you're trying to cut it back out so you can put individual mechanicals instead of tying it into the subdivision?
I would explain it a little bit differently than that, so if you let me speak, I'll.
I know nobody likes the way I explain it. I can tell, I just don't understand that.
This came before you, probably back in August. I think it was approved as 30 lots.
That's correct.
This is proposed 20 lots, so we're reducing the number. It was approved with individual sewer, 30 lots without a waiver. Because of development behind it, same property owner, different development name, different restrictions. Submitted something that the parish's opinion is, or the parish review engineer's opinion is that it would require a waiver. Our developer wanted me to pass this message to you guys. He wants to be a good partner with you. He wants to be a good neighbor. He wants to develop whatever by the rules that you set forth. He read the ordinance, came to me and said, hey, it says if you have this size lots, you could do individual sewer. Looks like they're trying to promote bigger lots. I like doing bigger lots, and I've done some stuff for him. That's what he told me. So anyway, that's how he came about submitting this to you. He goes, we'll do some small lots in the back with sewer, but I'm gonna try to give him some bigger lots on the roadway. So that's what we submitted. We wanted to be a good neighbor. If you guys don't want that, he's not gonna be mad, but I'll be back here next month with 60-foot lots. With
Yeah, but I thought we passed something at the last meeting where we didn't have to do a waiver. We went back and with the 1 acre lots, cause Gary, you made the motion to
Well-
accept that, right?
1 acre,
One acre-
what we clarified was contiguous, meaning that, okay, so the way the ordinance, even, you
With
know,
the two
we talk
contractors.
about roads with respect to connectivity, but in essence, when you develop a subdivision, the first 20 can be mechanical. After that, they gotta have community sewer.
That's correct.
Okay, so Eagle, whatever the other Eagle name was, Eagle Park? Eagle Park got the first 20. Everything else after that is in addition. What we clarified was that just because it had a different name or a different owner didn't mean it was you could have 20, 20, 20, 20. So ultimately, this needs to be tied in the community sewer system. We've already, the 20 with the sewer, with the mechanical sewer has already been utilized. And we need to go back and clarify that because it's kind of ridiculous in the way it's structured that, you know, he makes a submittal on the first 20 and then after that, everybody's got to have sewer. We really need to go visit, and we've talked about that, you know, we're trying to address it in ordinance just to eliminate that period. You know what I'm talking about? Come ask for the waiver if you want mechanical, and then put everybody on a community sewer system. But ultimately, Eagle Gate Acres should be part of a community sewer system, along with
Eagle Gate subdivision?
Eagle Gate subdivision, because originally they were together. And now they're trying to separate them.
I disagree. It was approved 2 separate subdivisions. It was a 30-lot subdivision, Eagle Gate.
So you're taking 10 lots out of the, you're taking 10 lots out and put them in another subdivision, right?
Yeah. So.
Okay.
But anyway, I'm just saying, whatever y'all, I'm sorry, Shane, go ahead.
Can I go?
Go ahead, Shane.
I'm trying to go off of memory, so it's a little bit difficult. But, okay, so we've already approved a large lot, 30-lot subdivision. That preliminary plat's already approved, period. Okay. We've also already approved a smaller lot subdivision that's a lot more than 30 lots. And that larger subdivision is gonna have that community sewer system. So both.
The 30 lots.
I'm asking a question. Hold on. I'm gonna get clarification. If I'm wrong, he's gonna tell me. To me, both of those preliminary plats are already approved, okay? Now, that being said, correct me if I'm wrong, he's coming back and he's modifying the 30-lot subdivision to be a 20-lot subdivision?
Yes, sir.
Okay. He's already approved for single individual mechanical sewer systems for the 30-lot?
He was originally, there's a question on that, and that's kind of, we're here to let you decide. But he was originally, when we submitted for the rest of the property, the
preliminary
review
plat,
engineer
yeah.
at that time said, well, you're above 30 lots, so we want you to put sewer on here first, on these lots as well. So that's how it came about. So that's how we presented to the plan commission, said, hey, we're asking for these 20 lots. It was already approved. It does require a waiver. They're all 1 acre, and would you know, whatever you'd rather, if you want 21 acre lots right there along the road, that's fine. Our client's fine with that. If you say, hey, we got to have sewer, he's going to change it to smaller lots to be able to, you know, make it feasible to put sewer in, but he'll put the sewer in if that's what y'all want to along that road. So, like I said, he just wanted y'all to know he wasn't trying to go around the ordinance. He's reading. It says you put this many lots in and do it this size. His intention was to put larger lots in.
So does the existing ordinance allow for you to have individual mechanical sewer systems? Morgan wants to go, if you have 20 lots,
So
30 lots?
It does, but it doesn't clarify if it comes out of the same property. And Mr. Sam, Morgan, and I, we've all talked about it. I'm not gonna put words in her mouth. She'll say the same thing, but we've all talked about it, and we all feel like there's a little gray area, and we've even talked to Councilman Talbert about it. And that's one of the things we'd like to clarify in the future, but I'm just asking about this one.
And I guess we really need clarification too. I mean, I agree with G-Boy. This was already approved in the last meeting. The larger lot subdivision with the community sewer, and we agreed, and it's probably in the minutes, that we would move forward and then correct this problem after the fact.
Yeah, so in the last meeting, there was another 20 lot subdivision that they were worried about. So ultimately, let's just kind of be honest. That 20 lot was presented last meeting, wasn't it presented last meeting so that? Different. I understand, but it was presented last meeting so that it wasn't commingled with these. And we approved that with individual because we wanted to get that out of the way. Now all of a sudden they're back with another 20 lot subdivision, trying to get another 20 approved with mechanical. When the understanding was the first 20 would be approved with mechanical and everything else would be community. And so, I mean, to be quite honest with you, Eagle Gate Acres should be mechanical. Should be a community sewer system along with Eagle Gate subdivision. That's my opinion. I mean, that's just for what it's worth. But to be honest with you, if all three of them would have been presented at the same time, you could argue that the one approved last meeting with 20 lots could have been grouped into this. But because it was separated, it got approved for mechanical. That's Mr. McMorris, you have the same feeling I have?
Yes, sir, I do.
Ms. Morgan, do you have the same feeling?
I would like to say why I asked for them to come back, because I wasn't here last meeting to tell y'all. So when this originally came, they showed two different larger lot subdivisions, Eagle Park and Eagle Gate first filing, okay? So they showed 30 lots and then a large tract of land behind it, possible future development. So the way your ordinances are written is 30 lots. They got it. And if they would have developed that and never said anything, the truth is they would have got those first 30. But your ordinance reads that all filings within a subdivision, not a named subdivision. This is how we read it. We're talking about a subdivision of property. Currently, they have a large tract of land, and now Eagle Gates, 2nd through 15 or whatever it was, is going in that property behind it. So we interpret that as that original approved plat, it's not the same anymore because you've already showed me that you have multiple lots coming behind it within the same subdivision of property. And that is why I wanted clarification from y'all on that one. This is the same instance, except that they are revising. Revisions come back to y'all. That's a significant change. So we look at this as there's a large piece of property, and while they're cutting out the 20 lots in front, there's still all that property in the back, and they are showing it as, they've now changed the name, Eagle Gates Acres and Eagle Gate first and second filing. So we look at it as it's cumulative. You have to count it all in that subdivision of property. It's not the name of the subdivision. That's how we interpret it. And Billy and them interpret it differently, which is why Billy has asked that we clean up the ordinance, because it is interpreted two different ways by two different people. Now, am I going to say that I think it's terrible to have acre lots? No. I think acre lots are great, and I'd like to say that as a citizen of Livingston Parish, but this is why we're asking that a waiver, or saying it needs a waiver, because technically the way the ordinances are written is it's the same piece of property, and you have to count all filings and all subdivisions of it.
So I'm gonna make the motion to accept the waiver. I'm gonna tell you why. Because if we don't accept this waiver on this one here, we're gonna split it up even more. And I'd rather have 20 lots instead of 75 lots on that acreage right there. If you guys will help me approve the waiver, please.
All right, so we got a motion from Mr. McMorris, second from Mr. Delat. Hold on.
Clarify what the name is, because we have Eagles.
All right,
the
so we're gonna have to do these separate.
Okay, we've got two on the agenda.
So this one is for.
we're talking about is Eagle Gates Acres.
Eagle Gate Acres.
Okay? And that's the one, the 1 acre lots.
So we're you're offering the waiver.
That's correct.
It said Eagle Gate Acres, but on the plat, it says Eagles Gate Acres.
Eagle Gate.
So is it Eagle or Eagles?
Oh, you're asking if it's plural or not? It's Eagles.
Because they're gonna have more eagles.
They got a bunch of more,
Got several.
more eagles coming to Livingston Parish.
Thank you.
All right, so
right,
this
so-
is the first one,
That's
is the motion, you get making a motion to
Accept the waiver.
accept it with the waiver.
Yep.
All right, so is there any comment from the public on this? All right. and
This developer called me
All right,
and was asking me about it. And I said, well, that's not in my district, I'm not that familiar with it. And he said, well, the lady from the parish engineering firm told him he couldn't do it,
Who called you, Bubba?
that developer.
Oh, okay.
And I said, well, if she told me you couldn't do it, that's it. I can't change her mind. I mean, that's her job. So I left it like that.
So, Mr. McMorris, you in favor of the waiver so that you end up with only 20 lots on that 21,
Yes.
22 acres?
okay. And Mr. Delat has seconded that. There's no comment, so, Ms. Sandy, won't you call roll on this?
Mr. Ard,
Yes.
Mr. Garlandhouse.
Yes.
Mr. Wascom,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. McMorris.
Yes.
Mr. Delat,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Talbert,
Yes.
Mr. Mack.
Yes.
All right, Sam.
Okay. The next one is Eagle Gates first and second filing. This is Eagles Gates. This is a subdivision with improvements. This is also in Mr. Gerald's district. It's off Brown Road. It is a recommendation of the Livingston Parish Planning Commission to approve the preliminary plat for Eagle Gates first and second filing.
So all he did here was made some changes onto the roads in this part here that we already approved. Anybody got a question for Billy on this? We can pass it to him, but it's all just dealing with the roads.
I second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right,
All right, so motion, what was your motion again?
motion to accept.
Motion to accept, second by Mr. Delat. Is there any comment from the public on this? Any more comment from the council?
Just had a quick question.
Mr. Mack?
I'm gonna go fast. This is for Billy. So Billy, I see your retention ponds, this subsurface drainage. You're gonna be able to drain this entire subdivision, subsurface to those retention ponds?
He won't know till the preliminary passes and run the dang drainage impact study. That's why I wanted to do it.
Like you say no if you can.
But you can't know. It's a guess.
That's the plan?
I'm gonna be able to do that.
All right. Ms. Sandy, call for the vote.
Mr. Ard,
Yes.
Mr. Garlandhouse.
Yes.
Mr. Wascom.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Mr. McMorris.
Yes.
Mr. Delat.
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Mr. Talbert.
Yes.
Mr. Mack.
That wasn't very nice.
All right, Mr. Sam,
Thank you.
you earned your money tonight.
Yes,
You
sir.
done already? It didn't take but an hour.
No reason to have to leave so early.
All right, agenda item 11, did we get this cleared up, Ms. Sandy, about the named road? Do we need to defer
This
this?
poor lady, she has been trying since November and December to get her road name. She wants to put Hunter in everything, because that's their last name, their family name. Well, she submitted the last
You
three
name
times.
you say
Two of
Hunter,
them
we
were
got it.
Hunter, and the other one was Robbie Lee, and we were praying that she could get us another acceptable petition by tonight, and she did not, so.
Okay, so we'll just defer it to the next meeting.
Can you name it Robert Lee?
We got that too. All right, so item 11 is, so we'll move on to item 12. Adopt a resolution to authorize a waiver for mobile home to be placed at 24687 George Settlement Road, Springfield, Louisiana, 70462. That will be a second structure on the property and is short of footage required. Randy Delat.
This is in an area that's a non-named subdivision, that has her sister's trail on it. It's a half-acre lot, and she wants to put her trail on it. And they 200 square feet short, which is an area of 20 by 10. I would like to make a motion that we'll let that.
Make a motion to give her a waiver to allow the second structure.
Randy, is the health department gonna have an issue with the bodad because there's not enough square footage?
If she does, that's gonna be between the health department and her. She's aware of that. That could be a possibility.
So if that happens, that'll be on her.
That'd be on
Yeah.
her. She was told that her sister could put a bigger septic tank down and she tied into the bigger septic tank, but I don't know that to be true. I don't know that to be
Not ideal.
It's not ideal. I say it's motion.
All right, so we got a second from Mr. McMorris on that. Is there any comment from the public on this? Any more from the council? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Gardenhouse, you for that?
I'm for it.
All right, he wasn't here.
Randy was.
Yep. All right, 13, board reappointments. Fire Protection District Number 1, Mr. Mack.
All right, appreciate you. So we just need to ratify the town appointment board to Fire District 1, and we need to ratify the Fire Protection District 1 board appointment. Sid Woods is a new appointment, right?
Let's see. Board appointment, Rodney
And
Russell.
Rodney Russell is a reappointment. I'd like to make that motion. Like I said, we're just ratifying, we've already.
So we're ratifying Sid and we're appointing
Well, no, we're
Russell.
ratifying both.
I mean, we're ratifying both of them?
Yeah, they appointed them, we're just ratifying it.
I'll make
Okay.
that motion.
All right. I think Mr. Garlinghouse already seconded it. So we had a motion from Mr. Mack, second from Mr. Garlinghouse. Any comment from the public? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Next page. 14, committee reports. Ordinance Committee, Mr. Wassler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We picked up two items tonight on the ordinance committee, and if you would, we'll put them up individually. Number 1 and 2 were the same thing. We just broke them out in 2 different ordinances because we felt like a turnaround should be in a separate part of the ordinance than the setback. So it's just basically the same ordinance, but it's in 2 different sections. That's why. And what we've done, this is the same ordinance that we spoke about at the last ordinance committee meeting about the setbacks. And then, so tonight, when that item came up, we did not have a quorum, but the council, the ordinance committee supported it before, and all we did different was Mr. Gerald got with Miss Sandy and cleaned it up even better, let the attorney look at it, and it was approved. So I'd like to make a motion that we introduce the ordinance for the building setback lines requirements, and in that, add number 2 to section 125-34, safety requirements of property adjacent to state and federal highways.
All right, so we actually have a second from Mr. Garlinghouse. Ms. Sandy, will you read by title?
This is an ordinance to hereby amend chapter 125 subdivision regulations, article 1 in general, by adding section 125-33 building lines with an S, setbacks with an S, requirements that are adjacent to state and federal highways, and section 125-34 safety requirements of property adjacent to state and federal highways of the code of ordinances in the parish of Livingston. The public hearing will be March 24th at 6 p.m. And there's one, even though we worked on this, there's one little baby typo that says that, and it's in the second paragraph, no, in the first paragraph. These requirements shall only apply to building lines, setbacks of buildings and other structures, that, before it's voted to introduce one of the that's the.
Okay, with that change being said here at the introduction, I think it's okay if we go ahead and make a motion, yeah.
All right, so we got a motion and a second. Anything from public on this? And you said the March 24th to be the public hearing on this?
Yes, at 6 p.m.
All right, all in favor?
Hey,
Whoa, wait.
what was the original setback?
Well, it changes.
We don't really,
We don't.
I think they even had a
What was it?
Hold on.
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Gerald knows. Mr. Gerald knows. You want to come up and answer that question for him?
My name is
Okay.
Gerald Burns, and I'm the chairman of the Master Plan Review Committee. Basically, we've been trying to get money to widen Florida Boulevard, and we had back in October, we had a meeting with Secretary Sean Wilson of DOTD, and his deputy secretary and the chief of planning and programming, and then other ones. And we asked him for funding for Florida Boulevard, starting in Denham Springs all the way past the landfill in Walker, a total of $64 million. And he listened very intently, but at the end, he was talking about some problems they had in St. Tammany Parish where the people had built buildings too close to the road, and the state was having to buy the buildings. So he asked us in Livingston Parish to stop building so close to the public roads and state and federal highways. So we kind of took it and run with it, okay? And we interpolated the 30-foot setbacks on rear and side based upon what they did on Jewin Road, which is 30 foot, and what they're starting to do on Florida Boulevard with the roundabout. So that's, to widen the roads, you need to quit building close to the roads. We've done a study from Denham Springs past the landfill in Walker, and I come up with about 35 buildings within a 30-foot setback. So those buildings, when you widen Florida Boulevard, you're going to pay for those buildings. So our goal is to not quit buying buildings and start building roads. So that's basically what it's about.
So what was the original? I think that's what he asked.
Was there original setback distance?
I'm sorry, what's the question
What was
again?
it originally at? I
What's
can't
the
remember.
original distance? Did they have an original distance of a setback?
No, there is no guidelines
So
right
there
now.
is no guidelines right now.
The building lines that we have now are subdivision guidelines, building line, and that's only within the subdivisions. To give you an example, there's two houses built with a subdivision across from the Gator Mill Works on Florida, and those, they use the setbacks between houses, which is 6 or 7 foot. So those houses are 7 foot off of Florida Boulevard. So now, when you widen the road, the state has got to buy those two houses.
Well, it's 6 or 7 foot off the right of way.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's right there, Howard.
Yeah.
And that's usually
Look,
where
before
the
we
power-
vote on this, can I ask Mr. Moody a question?
Sure.
So if I own property on Florida Boulevard and we pass this ordinance and I lose use of the first 30 feet of my property, who's compensating?
Thank you.
Wait a minute, well, you're talking about, you're not gonna make them move any current structures that are already.
No, but I own property. It's commercial property, has some value.
Right.
And we're gonna pass an ordinance, and I'm gonna lose an additional 30 feet past the servitude. Technically, I own the servitude, but we're gonna expand it, and I'm gonna lose use of another 30 feet of my property. So it's gonna be, I'm gonna lose 55 feet of the depth of my property. Who's gonna compensate me for
Well,
that?
that's one of those reasonable land regulations you're allowed to make, you know? You can't take it all from them, you know? If they're completely deprived of their piece of property, they may have a claim. But as long as they can still use it in some fashion, then.
You're just saying they can't
it's
build
not
a
been
building.
taking, it's not been a taking. But theoretically, that could be a taking in some circumstance. And if you can't take people's property without compensating.
So, but in this particular situation, you think it'll be on a basis, you know, depending on how deep my property is, whether it is able to be used or not, would challenge, I could challenge this ordinance, or how?
It would have to be taken completely out of commerce, really, for them to make that claim, I think. So, just like, zoning regulations and rules have changed all the time, you know.
And to be clear too, that if we don't change it at some point, then it'll never get changed. Florida Boulevard will stay 2 lanes forever.
Yeah, I just wanted somebody to clarify the fact that it can be done without.
All of them will stay 2 lanes. And if we try to make this move 30 years from now.
We called the question. We had a motion from John, a second from Mr. Girlinghouse. Any more comment from the public? All right, All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? All right, now, this should be
14-3. 14-3.
AI3.
Yes. This is another item that we picked up at the ordinance committee meeting tonight. It was, for all lack, it's a better name, we call it Councilman Gary Talbert's ordinance.
That's a death blow to it, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it was.
An acronym.
Yeah. I can't remember what the acronym is.
It went FOTSI.
Yeah, it's FOTSI. So, committee to amend various, to his ordinance, and it talked about Fonzies, and we had a very well discussion tonight. A lot of people showed up, had a lot of questions, and it was a well thought out ordinance, and I think Mr. Gary is doing a fantastic job of really drafting an ordinance that's going to be stricter for the parish, for developers coming in to enhance drainage, and I'd even ask you to make it a little bit to look at traffic and other things, also make that part of that ordinance. And so Mr. Keene was also in the meeting tonight, and supported it. And so the committee asked that we asked the parish council to just defer this to one more ordinance committee meeting so he can get that ordinance a little bit better, and then we'll bring it back up at the next meeting. So
Talbot?
You know, I'd like to introduce ordinance. I know it has a few problems, but you know, the longer we defer, then 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks. We can introduce this ordinance. We can fix a couple things in the ordinance committee. We can amend it and then vote on it in 2 weeks. And I think that,
Or defer it then.
yeah, or defer it then. But I think if we go ahead and make the introduction tonight, as it's done, we know the 2 things that we want to correct. I think Mr. Taylor would come speak on behalf of that if I think he would. That I think there's a couple things that I think we've all kind of agreed upon need to be fixed, and you know, we can introduce it now and fix them later.
I'd just like to say, yeah, 2 weeks ago, there was an ordinance committee meeting, and y'all asked us to talk to a lot of people and invite people to hear what y'all were trying to pass, and there was a lot of people here tonight with a lot of input, and I agree with Mr. Gary and all you guys. I think we need to move this forward. There are a couple of minor things to fix, and got time to do it, so I say we move it forward and go from there.
well, I appreciate that, Mr. Taylor. However, I was in the meeting with you. There was a lot of people in here, had a lot of questions. Mr. Talbot was not here for the majority of the meeting. And so if had he been here, we could have got a lot of those questions answered. At the very last moment, he showed up, and which is fine, and he answered a few small questions, but there was a lot of things that were changing. I mean, he's wanting to scratch out all the word Fonzie, which I agree. And so I'd say let's give the ordinance committee a chance to look at a rough draft before we introduce it, guys. We don't need to rush this thing for 2 weeks. It's not going to hurt anything. I mean, let's get it right.
2 more weeks.
Let's get the ordinance. No. And Mr. King, you supported it and voted to do this. And
people are here tonight.
you know, we're good, but it's better to get it right than get it wrong.
We still have time to get it
So,
right.
that's right. So let's just defer this.
Let's quit talking over each other.
I made a motion to introduce.
So we got a motion and a second. Repeat your motion, Gary, so we get it right.
Introduce, do the introduction and set the public hearing for I don't know the number. What's the number gonna be, Sandy?
Are you doing any amendments? Are you striking the
No,
Fonzie?
we're not. We're
You
gonna
don't know what
introduce
it's-
it as it is, and then we'll amend it and we'll modify.
We'll amend it.
So you're introducing it with the Fonzie in it?
Yeah, we're gonna introduce it as it's written, and then we're gonna amend it, and then we'll vote on it as amended.
Introduce it as it's written. It's written where everybody tonight showed up against it. So let's don't introduce it like that.
No, they weren't against it.
Scooter, you voted against
Well,
it.
let me tell you, it is. I told you from the
Hey,
beginning.
let's
we were gonna
don't
strike
talk
the Fonzie.
over each other, one at a time. Mr. Talbot, you had anything you want to add?
No.
Mr. King, you have something you want to add?
No, sir, thank you.
Mr. Wascom, you have something you want to add? All right, Ms. Sandy?
Every amendment, when you amend it, has to be read into record and amended.
Right.
Just
Okay.
wanted to state that.
That's only gonna be 3.
So,
So every time it says Fonzie, if y'all want that taken out, I'll have to read that.
Okay, so let me amend my motion.
to pull that tonight.
that we're gonna amend the introduction and everywhere in the current ordinance where it refers to a Fonzie in yellow is gonna be stricken. That's how we're introducing it.
So we're going to introduce it with striking everywhere that it mentions funds.
In the yellow
In the yellow highlighted section.
Look, we need to discuss all of this before we vote, okay? I mean, if we're gonna go do
No, we
all
got a
this.
motion, let's vote.
No, we need to
Hold on,
discuss this,
hold on.
because there's major modifications to this development ordinance. We're introducing it, and you need major amendments. I mean, guys.
Don't introduce it.
This ain't right.
So vote no
Just
to his
vote no.
ordinance,
Just vote no.
and we'll pick it up at the ordinance committee.
Okay.
You got a motion, you got a call for a vote.
That ain't what the ordinance committee discussed, and the ordinance committee
Right.
agreed to.
So,
move forward.
so you want to make a second substitute motion?
Yeah, I wanna make a substitute motion.
Go ahead.
I make a substitute motion that we defer this ordinance until the ordinance committee can read and review and make sure that it's introduced, well-written, accurate, and it meets the intentions of the ordinance and and the constituents and all this type of stuff.
I second that.
There's not one word in this ordinance that's modified, and it's a simple.
I second that.
It's major.
All right, so we got a motion from, and we got, the question's been called. So, I will call for the vote, but I will say this. I will not vote again after tonight to kick this down the road. Not again.
good to me.
When we have the next ordinance meeting, this needs to be
Why
fixed.
don't we call it extra ordinance?
Period.
committee
It needs to be
fix
fixed.
it next week and then it'll be ready.
Ms. Sandy, call for the vote.
Mr. Ard,
Okay, wait.
This is Shane's motion to defer it and get back to the ordinance. Yes.
Mr. Earlyhouse,
No.
Mr. Watson,
Yes.
Mr. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. McMorris,
Yes.
Mr. Delat,
Yes.
Mr. King.
No.
Mr. Talbot,
No,
Mr. Mack.
Yeah.
it's deferred.
Motion passes, deferred to the
Just
ordinance.
like every other thing they're trying to do.
All right,
That's not true.
Hold on. I've got some, business since we're on committee report. We forgot to do this in the last meeting, but Mr. King had asked to get off of the ordinance committee because his workload's gotten pretty heavy. Mr. Talbert's agreed to get back and take his spot, so Mr. Talbert will now be on the ordinance committee. We kind of had a little issue tonight because we forgot to do it. So that should clear that up. So now, finance committee, we had no
We'll have
meeting.
one at the next meeting.
So, district attorney's report,
I'm gonna send you a letter about what was discussed tonight, so I won't have to give my comments to the public meeting.
okay. All right, think you actually earned a little money tonight.
Yeah, really. Hey, that crowd gave me an ovation at the planning commission.
Yeah. All right.
They didn't,
Can-
not so much tonight.
Yeah. Councilman comments, we'll start. Mr. Talbot, you got any? Mr. King? Mr. Mack, any comments?
Appreciate everybody.
Mr. Wascom, any comments? Mr. Girlinghouse, any comments?
Yeah, my Walker Wildcat girls kind of fell a little short on the Final Four the other night, but the boys are still in it. So
They play Wednesday night while we're in Lake Charles.
that's right.
They play
You're playing in Lake Charles.
in Lake Charles.
Yep.
So, yeah, while we're there. Oh, what? Man, I got green and yellow coming out of these veins. What are you talking about? Randy, you have any councilman comments?
I do have one. So Ukraine, let's keep them in our prayers, like Shane said earlier. And, man, I encourage myself, the people of the parish, come to our planning commission and come to hear like they did tonight. I didn't make it. I didn't get in from work in time. We have to make sure we're here to help these guys out, put things in place. All right? So I'm begging the parish, the people, come fill this room. That's what I'm asking the people who live in the parish to come do. Okay? Thanks.
All right, Mr. Bo?
I only have one comment.
What's that?
I want to thank everybody.
We got you, Bubba. We got you. We're glad you're back.
Glad you're back, brother.
All right. All right, I have no comments tonight. So can I get a motion?
Motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.